Chemistry Room Fragrances is the perfect addition when elevating the vibe of any space. Whether if it's your home, car, or office, and something needs a quick refresh, our room fragrances provide that beautiful burst of fragrance with just one quick mist. Shop now at www.chemistryroomfragrances.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Chemistry Room Fragrances. Chemistry Room Fragrances. Smells so good.
Hey, what's going on, Dr. McAfee?
I'm on mute. I like that because it gets me to my hook. Return of the Mac.
Yeah.
Yes, I have my own theme music. No, just hey, everybody.
Gee, I feel for that. That's cool though. What's going on? What's up?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe right now. Follow me on Instagram at Camille.Essick. And guess what, guys? Good Black men still exist. They are out there. Get the merchandise right now on my website. Our Father's Day sale is going on right now. So use the coupon code DAD2020. That way you can save 20% off at the checkout. The sale is going on until June the 10th, which is next Friday. And the scent of the night is lavender vanilla. It is back. I had to bring it back just in time for summer. So go grab it right now. We have duos available. We're done plugging. We're going to get right into the show. So I met this person. He is so cool, y'all. He is so dope. I found him on TikTok and I was like, oh my God, I have to bring him onto the show. Uh-huh. So I'm going to introduce to everyone Dr. Sheldon McAfee.
Yay! Hey, everybody.
What's going on? So those that are not familiar with you, Dr. Sheldon, let the viewers know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Oh, sure. So I'm Dr. Sheldon C. McAfee, not to be confused with Dr. Sheldon T. McAfee, although we're no relation. Right. I am a proud graduate of the Alabama State University class of 2003. Sting, Hornets! So I have full HBCU pride. I am so happy to be on this space. My background has been in an educator for the past 20 years, and I do work in that area around consulting, children's literature, university professor. I started an ed tech company. During the pandemic, like a lot of folks, I got involved in TikTok. I saw my cousins and nieces, and I think my daughter might have had one. And so I was like, I probably could do some of this because I consider myself a bit of a card. I don't know. I think I'm funny. Or I crack myself up.
You are.
So I started just making some funny videos about being a teacher and a principal because that's what my background is. And a lot of my friends and some people who aren't my friends liked it and shared it. It's just my experience being a principal. So I'm also a member of the greatest Greek letter fraternity for men, Kappa Alpha Psi. That's so nice. They named it twice. And so I do a couple of my videos about being a Black Greek teacher. I do some things about being a principal. So I was a principal for 13 years. And so it's just, my shtick. But it helps me to be a creative, and I enjoy making people laugh. So that's where the TikTok came in.
I love it. It is a D9 situation tonight.
Yes, it is. Indie love all up and through.
That's what y'all say, but we don't feel the love.
Oh, that's, I'm not gonna give you my favorite Kappa line. So
No, children may be watching. So we're gonna get right into the
right.
show. So first of all, Dr. McAfee, kind of give us your background as far as what has been your inspiration to get into the field of education. Like, what inspires you to become an educator?
Oh yeah. So gosh. So I am the product of my mother is an educator. My great grandmother had a prayer for her children that they all be educated, and so her daughters went to high school, but she wanted them to go further because she never got to go to school at all. And so that was her prayer that her children and her grandchildren be educated. And so her children all graduated from high school, and then her grandchildren, so my great grandmother's grandchildren, all went to college and became teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mother's a teacher. And my sister and brothers are teachers. And so all I knew was, helping someone somewhere learn how to read, someone know how to do math, pay attention, be a good person. And then I had great teachers as a student in the Chicago public school system and Mobile, but I was there for a brief time. But I spent my formative years in the Chicago public school system. And so one of my teachers, Miss Sheldon McAfee, was amazing. I had her for 7th and 8th grade year. She was the one who identified that I was dyslexic. And so I had gone my entire career from kindergarten, pre-K, really all the way up to 7th grade, reading a little below grade level, but the work came easy to me. But Miss McAfee figured out, I think when you put things in writing or when you're reading it, you get things turned around. And so it's actually her who got me started on being a writer, because what she would do is say, she said, Sheldon, I want you to go and create an alternative ending, or I want you to retell me this story, right? And then read it out loud to yourself. And so that was how I practiced, with my dyslexia, by writing the story out like the way I thought it should be. And then if it didn't make sense, then, go back and find your own mistakes. So during that practice, I just love writing stories. So even when I went away to college, I wrote stories. And I'm a member of, because at HBCU, once you're in it, you always in it. But I was a member at the time of a student orientation services, and we had to write skits and plays for the incoming freshmen and their parents to get them acclimated and understand, Alabama State University. And so Ms. Darrington asked me to write more skits and plays, and so my creative vein went from being a student in school to being a college student who liked to write. And then I became a teacher because I had great teachers who helped me. And Miss McAfee gave me a chance to be a good student. I know it's because of her. I'm a writer and I have a doctorate, because that's all you have to do to get a doctorate is write a lot, read and write a lot, and to become an expert on a topic. And that was because of her. So these wonderful people I had, and I'm one of those kids who could name every teacher they had, because I really made a connection with each and every last single one of them. So I had great teachers, and my family comes from a line of educators.
That's amazing. You touch on some points I do want to touch on. One of the things was the fact that your teacher, she observed you enough to realize, okay, something's off. Let's figure out what this is. I think this is what this is.
Yeah.
And then she had a plan to work with your the way you learned. I won't call it a disability, just say that you learned differently. And so then by her having that intuition and noticing, observing you as a student, to say, hey, I see this problem.
Yeah.
So here's how we can correct it and fix it and make him a better student where he's grasping the information. So that's one point. I hear so many stories about teachers now just passing the student to get them out of the class, versus taking the time to pause. And I do want you to touch on that as far as educators taking the time to say, hey, I'm seeing something different with this child, and then being proactive about it without destroying the student's identity or self-esteem.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you brought that question up. I didn't even know that was going to be a focal point. So you're absolutely right. Miss McAfee spent time with me. She didn't get me for a year, or not even a year. I don't know why we call school year. It's only 9 months. You get them for 9 months and they're out. Vacation, holidays, and summer break. Total of 9 months that you're with a child. But I had her for 2 years. So I looped with her, right? And so looping is a practice in education where you stay with your same group of students and the teacher transitions with them to the next grade level. So when I was a principal, I employed this strategy in my school. I had some teachers intentionally assigned to be a first, second, and a third grade teacher so that they always looped with a grade level of kids. Because what we really need is like what you pointed out, the time to observe them, right? When you go in for a doctor's visit, unless it's the emergency room, you have the same doctor over a period of time. They can pull your records, they can identify your history, and they can say, oh, this is the best course of action based off the data because we've had, time with it. But I'll put a C in there. It's Dr. Sheldon C. McAfee, because I don't want to be confused with that other guy, Dr. Sheldon T.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, it's connection, it's relationship. So by her being with me, she was able to say, wait a minute, I'm noticing something, but it's not connecting. And so she put the pieces together. But you can't do that if you're going to rush a child through a teacher's experience with only 9 months. First off, it takes time to even build a relationship. I don't know what that baby went through. I don't know if that child is ready to, or on grade level, but you just want me to hurry to get through it. So I've always been a fan.
And building trust.
Yes, it takes time. Like you and teachers used to get mad at me. And I love my teachers out there. I hope y'all know I'm on y'all side. I always tried to have y'all back when it came down to it. But teachers will say to me, they didn't listen to me right away. No, y'all don't listen to me right away. I'm y'all boss, and I tell y'all do something, I got to come back and ask you over and over again. Right. So if I'm going to give my my teachers that grace, you should give your students that grace. And then remember, they just met you. They don't know you. I've got to get to know you. Like even a kid. So working with little kids at an early childhood center, it's amazing to me that a bunch of strangers will walk through that door, but as soon as they see their parent, their eyes pop. They rush straight to them. You can't tell me kids don't realize the importance of relationship. Someone who is there for them over time. That makes sense. Even a little kid can say, yeah, I don't know this person. And it's somebody there who's there to take care of them. It's someone who's there to make sure that they're safe, right? But they don't know you. But they see that mama and daddy come in and they run to them. So, schools should create systems where children can thrive. The best way I've seen kids thrive is when you keep them with a good teacher for 3 years. And let them connect with the families. Because I know we talked about how do we get families involved in schools? Well, a lot of parents that I've worked with, because I've always worked in what we call a 90-90-90 school. Like 90% of the kids are minority, 90% of them on free and reduced lunch, and then 90% of them might be struggling academically, or 90% of them might be, performing great. But those are the type of schools where I worked. And so to that end, we had parents who had socioeconomic concerns were paramount, right? Am I going to take on an extra shift, or am I going to go to parent-teacher conference? The teachers already called me, so I know what the behavior is like. I'll deal with it when I get home because I got to go make this money. So when teachers would be upset, because, well, nobody's coming to parent-teacher conference. Well, they might not be able to come to that parent-teacher conference. What other situations have we created that'll bring them in? So when you have that relationship with parents because you stayed with them for a number of years and know their child, the relationship isn't strange where you got to force them to come in once so I can get their attention. If I only see this parent 4 times over the next 3 years, I've seen them, I've connected with them, and I'm getting them involved in their child's life. And that should be enough so you can keep doing the hard work of teaching the child. But it's really hard when you can only get them for like 9 months and then they zoom, go on to the next class.
So, Dr. Sheldon, my question is, I have SOARs. So I'm a member of City Community Monroe, and we're founded on education. I have SOARs that are educators. I have friends that are educators. And so when I hear these conversations about the frustrations they have being an educator as far as parent participation, because everything is laid at the foot of the teacher. It's always the teacher's fault. But when you don't have parental participation, I've seen teachers now where they're taking money out of their pocket to buy school supplies, and they're not paid a lot as is, and then to take out of that to buy things that the child needs, or parents not coming to PTA, not assisting with homework. And so it goes from you being just a teacher to now you're the teacher, you're the child's social worker, you're the counselor, you might be the child's pastor, therapist, nutritionist. You're doing all of these things to even get the child in the space to be attentive to learn for however long you have in that classroom. So can you kind of touch on a little bit, Dr. Sheldon, as far as the importance of parental participation, and that this is a village situation and not just solely on the teacher?
Yes, wholeheartedly. So our parents are our students' first teacher. They see them, they mimic them, they listen to them, they come into the building before they even get to us. with a bank of vocabulary, right? With a number of words that they've heard or spoken to, and that's all done at home. So if parents, I know parents understand that they're their first teacher, and you'll for certain be their longest, right? And we just talked about teachers only with students at the most for 9 months. So it can't start and stop with the teacher. We have to have a system where, and this is going to sound crazy, but this is my far-fetched idea. We have to have a system where we support the parents who are actively involved, right? And it doesn't have to be anything financial, but it could be in terms of, I don't know, tax deductions. It could be in the return in the platform of opportunities for employment. But we've got to create spaces where parents are essentially recognized for the part that they do. Not saying that they should have to be, right? But it's a good thing when you notice the parent who does show up at PTA and does what she's supposed to. Not that you had to ask her to do it, but they did it because it's the right thing. When you are able to identify that parent as someone who's an exemplar, someone who is doing the hard work or doing the necessary work, because it's not, I won't even say hard, because it's a teamwork. If the schools and the parents work together, you're sharing the load. The problem comes in where the teacher's always doing the work or the mom's only doing the work. We've got to see that balance and that partnership. So as a principal, well, first off, as a parent, I try to attend those parent-teacher conferences at minimum and at least a field trip, right? So as a parent, decide, you get paid time off. And that could be another way that we not incentivize, but we recognize parents who participate in their child's academics schooling. We ask for jobs to give them that paid time off to go to school at least, twice a year, 3 times a year, to volunteer or to participate on a field trip, help out with a science fair. Teachers always need help, Most of the time they'll get a family member to come in, but if a parent wants to come in and be a room dad or a room mom and help grade some papers or set out some snacks, absolutely do that. So hopefully, corporate America will see the value and then start, giving parents the opportunity to go visit at their child's school. And then schools should, I think, be more welcoming to parents. To the point where the first person they greet at the door is someone who is, thank you for coming in. I'm so glad you're here today, right? We know that, with all this things that are happening in the world, unfortunate incidents where gun violence is taking out innocent children at school.
And I did want to ask you about that too.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. So I would tell the schools, be secure, be cautious, but create an atmosphere where your parents feel welcome. Also, we have all these platforms to provide information to share. You got Facebook, Instagram, you got Twitter, you got TikTok. You got a million different ways to connect to the parents. So, reach out to them. And then the old-fashioned way, put a flyer in a book bag, because some parents will and do check their child's book bag. Or I guess now it's most of it's digital, but I still put a flyer in a book bag. If that's the one sheet of paper that's going home, to let you all know that we have an opportunity for you to volunteer, show up, be at our school. Because kids need that partnership between the parents and the teachers so that they can stay on point. And it's not to control the child. It's to make sure that the kid or the child, when they show up in the classroom, they're prepared, right? So I teach equity education. If someone is, and equity is access. So if there's a hole in the middle of what I need, how am I supposed to get that unless someone feels it? That's the whole point of equity. So teachers and parents, if they're together and they can communicate and say, this is the hole that I have, right? Like my hole is I have a housing problem, right? I can't make it to school every single day, or I'm having a transportation hole, right? My kids' bus route doesn't come. But if we don't have that communication so that we can provide that access, we don't have that partnership so we can create that communication that leads to a better school system. So it's going to take a heart. Like, you got to come in and know that this is heavy lifting. I laugh because it's funny, some of the videos about teachers that are complaining about children, but we knew it wasn't an easy job. Like we knew going in, we was building a house that was on fire, right? That's exactly what it is like teaching. They go in there and build this house, but it's burning down. And you go in there carrying the wood, the weight, the water, the nails, and still no one comes in to help you. But you go in there because the babies want you. The students need you. So the videos are funny, but I do see when they complain, it's it's our way of venting because
It's
this
real
job is
life, though.
easy.
It's real life. And you touched on something. We were circling back the gun violence. We've seen this school shooting. We've seen what happened in Buffalo. I know people focus on the school shooting, and the shooting in Buffalo has been pressed in the background, which I don't want that to happen. But we do need to talk about the school side of it because you are an educator. So when that happened, did you see a shift in the students as far as the environment and educators, or how do educators address that, even though it may not have happened at their particular school? So how should educators, what is that like?
So I can speak for me. I had vicarious trauma. I work in the city of St. Louis, and I have had someone put a question on Twitter. Have you ever had to put your building on lockdown? And I was like, yeah, I had to do it 3 times. 3 times there was gunplay in the area, or someone who 2 times there was gunplay in the area, and then once someone was an intruder in a home, and we had to put the building on lockdown. But that is a scary thing to have to tell kindergartners. Even practicing a fire drill terrifies them because it's loud noises, and that's not the space where they would expect something like that to happen, right? They're at school. So I remember after the tragedy of Sandy Hook that I went on like 13 different intruder fire or prevention trainings, right? I did because fix the building, not the system, right? Fix the person in the school, not the system. Not to mention that the principal, and I believe in Sandy Hook, was killed because she went to try and stop the shooter. Now I'm going to all these trainings, and this is not, and I do not mean to make light of this at all, but I'm going to all these trainings. And at one time they even suggest giving us a bulletproof vest. Not once. Wow. But they want us to go up to the shooter and try and calm them down. Yeah. All right. My point is this. We have got to think about the system. We can't fix the building, like locking the doors, throwing up metal detectors. It's not going to fix the system, right? And I think you can fix the system by starting in schools. I think if you had more counselors, more therapists, like right now it's kind of a shame. You have like one school counselor per 200 to 300 children.
That's a counselor.
And that's more than paper. That's more paperwork than anything. But a counselor is someone I should be able to walk up to when I'm feeling bad, and they should talk me out of my funk. And schools have anywhere between 300 to 1,000 plus children in it. And if that counselor is busy typing up paperwork to process a referral or process a special ed request or process whatever, how are they supposed to be able to sit down with a child one-on-one and talk to them about their emotions? So if this young man is having an emotional episode for his life, like I think someone said that he might have been bullied in school, which is a legitimate thing that happens to children, but it's an inappropriate response, if you ask me, to come up into a school with a shotgun or an assault rifle. But if he had someone that he felt safe in his school talking to, a therapist, a counselor, a social worker, a safe space where he can say, my heart breaks every day that these kids are mean to me, then they can teach him coping skills. Like I'm gonna say this, I really don't have faith that a lot of the politicians are going to fix it.
Right.
I believe it's up to the educators. Yeah, if y'all gonna dump it on us, then let me dig deep and fix the problem. I believe that all schools need to be trauma informed. We need to have schools that are responding to how and what children go through and still show up to be students in your classroom.
We're doing so much at home. Food insecurities, food deserts at home, domestic violence, child abuse, neglect. There's so many things the child battles before they come into your class.
Yeah. And the majority of them don't shoot up the school, thank God.
Yeah, and I've heard so many stories about how some teachers have noticed their kids had food insecurities and did the backpack program where they would discreetly, pack backpacks for certain kids to have survival food for the weekend, and the child would bring it back on Monday empty. Yeah. And you think like, oh my God, but it happens because throughout the weekend that child wouldn't have food, so they would give them enough for the weekend.
Exactly.
Would bring it back on Monday, and of course they would eat at school, breakfast, things like that. But then what about that child in the summer or spring break or holiday break, like those things? So
Yeah, I saw during COVID that they set up schools to be food sources for kids in the neighborhood. I don't know if it happened before. I know that I do know that when I ran a school in the summer, we did have to feed them in the summer program. But you're right. Like there are still kids, and that's why I say we got to be trauma informed, because that same scenario where we give kids those backpacks discreetly so they can take home and have food. Some kids don't want that. Like they feel embarrassed that there's someone is giving them food. That pride is even there for a 6-year-old and for a 9-year-old. So I've seen it where a kid will stuff apples from the cafeteria, like will scoop them up or take people's apples, right? And then I remember one time I had a cafeteria manager just was livid. You can't be stealing apples. Give those back to those kids. Da, 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 da. So of course I'm called to the situation because I'm the principal.
Right.
I'm like, what's going on? So he's stealing apples, and she's berating him, and he's already embarrassed because he's stealing apples. Right. So I go and I pull him to the side, and he's telling me, that there's no food at home, and he's got grandma there, and she's hungry too, and they weren't even gonna eat their apples. All I was trying to do was take them home. Like a trauma-informed cafeteria manager would have went up to him and said, "Baby, is everything okay? Why do you need so many apples?" Instead of, "Why are you stealing apples?" Because that just exacerbates the situation. So again, that little boy, let's say he holds on to that rage for a lifetime, right? Because it's trauma.
Now you're triggering his trigger.
Yes, right. So and then it could lead to a mentality where he's embarrassed always, and he has to sneak around and do it still because I don't want people to know. And then what does that teach him? Like to be a criminal? That's even worse. So if we're a trauma-informed public school system, we're thinking, not what's wrong with you, what happened to you? What happened to you to make you think that right now the best life choice that you can make was to fill in the blank, shoot the school up, steal the apples, run your car off the road, cheat on a test. Because something happened that make you think this is the best choice that I can make. And if you don't have anyone to talk that through, therapists, like we need therapists in schools. I think there should be therapists in schools for the teachers and for the kids.
I was just about to say the teachers need it too because they have personal issues.
Yeah.
And then they're teaching. There's so many things that intrigue me about education, particularly for Black and Brown students, although I'm not a parent. I do have nieces, nephews. My friends have kids.
I got 2. You want to borrow them?
I'm the coolest auntie ever. So
I ain't talking about auntie. I'm talking about take them here. Put them in your pocket. I'll sign off the paperwork.
Oh my God.
No, I keep the oldest one though.
But it's there's so many things that make my heart ache, especially with the little ones. That just really bothers me because they're just trying to figure things out and understand this world in their little minds. And now there's this parent coming with this foolishness, antagonizing this child. And it's like, why? And there are just so many things that bothers me, Dr. Sheldon. And so I do want to get into your role, being a Black man in the classroom and how impactful it is to have men, particularly Black men in educational settings, what that means in a leadership or administrative level, but what it also means for that child on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So when I was in elementary school, we had a Black male teacher at almost every grade level. I remember in my elementary school, I was like, man, this is a lot of brothers. Like I've never seen so many men. It was Thomas A. Hendricks Academy in Chicago, Illinois. We had Mr. Odom, who was funny. I'll say that. Mr. Barres, Mr. Dillard, Mr. Cooley, our security guard, Mr. Tyson, Mr. Horton. We had Black men all over the place. Mr. Williams, my 8th grade co-teacher. Who else? Mr. Johnson, Mr. Dominique, the librarian was a Black man. So I remember when I went to college to become a teacher at the Alabama State University, they were like, "Oh, the teaching profession is only made up of 2% of Black men." I was like, "What? How is that possible?" I've always had a Black male teacher. So I did not realize that there are pockets. Well, again, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so my little 4 corners of the world at the time were majority Black people. I think the first time I saw a bunch of white people in my life was when I went to college in Alabama, but not in Alabama State University, but in the surrounding city.
The only time I saw a Black male teacher, he taught PE. He was track coach, might have been football or basketball coach, but I can't remember having not one Black male in the classroom. I didn't even have my first Black professor
Oh,
until my freshman year for African American Studies.
it blew my mind when I heard it because I'd always been exposed, even through high school. Now that I think about it, we had Black male teachers, and so I just thought that was the norm, like Black male professionals. Like I told you, my family has educators. My uncle Roland, my uncle Bill, my uncle Joaquin, all teachers. I'm probably forgetting someone. But these male experienced members who I know, so I challenged it. I was like, that can't be true. And my professor was like, yeah, kind of really is. And we've been holding steady at 2% of the profession for the longest time. So my reality of us being the minority in education did not hit me until I started teaching.
So why are Black men not recruited more in educational spaces?
You know, I don't know what it would take. For me, like I said, it was in my bloodline that I would be an educator. I think for young men, especially young men of color, we think of the financial outcome, right? Like we are going to be bosses, we're going to be in charge. If we're going to have families, we're going to be able to provide for them. And so teaching doesn't really pay that well out the gate. Like you got to have a heart for it. So my first year teaching in 2002, well, 2002 is when I first started teaching. I made $26,000 a year. Like, and you're thinking, what? Who was getting paid peanuts to do this job? So I think they've got to pay teachers what the value of it would be. Because if I'm a young Black man, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in elementary education, secondary education. I know that my starting salary right now, I think it might be $30,000 somewhere in the world. I think St. Louis just voted to make theirs a minimum wage like $45,000 just starting off. But I can go to school with a degree in finance. I can go to school with a degree in business. I can go to school and get a degree in something else, and then join corporate America, starting off at $80,000, $70,000. So we're not paying teachers what they're worth, and everybody needs a teacher. We need more men in the profession. Absolutely. I remember the first time I became a principal because there's not a lot of us in the building either. Sometimes, like I said, when I first started teaching, that's when I experienced that I was in the minority. So when I first started teaching, I was the only Black man in my school. And we had 28 classrooms, and I was the only Black male teacher. We had one other Black teacher in the whole school. And then every school I went to, except for one, where I was in Montgomery, Alabama, we had at least two other gentlemen of color were in the building. But other schools that I've been to as a principal, sometimes I've been the only one. And, you know, I say that I do it because I love what the outcome is going to be. But teachers need an income, and it's not fair that they're not compensated like the business professionals that they are. Like, yes, they do little silly dances and they come up with the best songs, but it's because they're using their creativity to get your children thinking. And so that's the first thing they've got to do. They've got to put a competitive salary and make people want to jump at it. Like, I personally think starting salary for teachers nationwide should be like $65,000 or more with a bachelor's degree.
And then depending on the city.
Yeah, cost of living increase. Yeah.
City schools versus suburban schools, and those differences is pay as well. It's just that even with, I feel, having an educator that looks like me or you in the classroom, how they even verbally can connect with the child, because you understand my culture, you understand the way I talk.
Yeah.
I think when we have teachers that don't look like our kids in the classroom, now they're being antagonized in another way. They're dealing with microaggressions and other things that the child experiences, and then it reflects in how that child is graded.
Yeah.
And then there's a disconnect because now they don't understand our culture and other little things and nuances about us as people of color, being Black and brown.
Yeah.
This all adds into the classroom setting. So I think that's so important.
Well, yeah, I would agree with that because as you were talking, it made me think about like the multiple intelligence that we have, right? So kids have different ways they receive information and different ways they output information. Like they might receive it because I sit and I say it, right? They're auditory, or they're kinesthetic. They have to have their hands on them, you know, an item, or touch or type or write. And then you have those visual learners, like all I got to do is see it. Maybe I can just read it and I'm receiving information.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's multiple intelligence on how I put the information out. Am I going to use, my body movement to show you? Am I going to use spoken words, song? Am I going to use art, visual description? And sometimes teachers, it's been my experience in working with, they have a certain way of doing things. There used to be this movie a long time ago called Teachers, where this old man would just sit there and crank out. And I'm doing this so you guys don't even know what this means, but it's a copy machine that you just have to crank with your hands. So he just cranked out like thousands of pages of paperwork and gave it to the students. And then he had them just fill out paperwork the entire time. And then to him, that was a good student, the one who just sat there and did the work. We've got to adjust. And I think when you know the culture of the children that you teach or that you lead, it makes a difference. I've mostly taught African-American children. So I've used a lot of hip hop and dance and movement and song and rhymes and raps and poetry to help make learning permanent for them, because that's the goal of teaching. Like I remember they used to have this McDonald's rap, and it's permanently implanted in my brain because our teacher used that to help us build our fluency. So we learned the rap because it was just reading the menu. So like basic words that you would need to know became
small beef patties,
small beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles. But it was a whole McDonald's rap, like they wrapped the whole menu. And she realized that's just sight words that y'all need to know eventually. So as you're reading, when you see it, you'll know it, and it won't stop your fluency. So like things like that, that you have to use that with different cultures and different backgrounds. So like I had a Hispanic speaking population when I was a principal. I had to learn Spanish, like at least the phrase "stop running in the hallway," so that I could communicate with them, especially if it was. And that was probably the one phrase that I had learned, and I still can't remember it. But I did that on purpose because although the children spoke English, I wanted to use it in their native tongue so they didn't know. I want to get to know you. I want you to know you.
And that creates trust, which we discussed before.
Okay. And they would turn around and they would look at me, see. So it's so important that they see us, right? I think the first time I became a principal, it was the first time Barack Obama became president. And so I went to the school. I had on not this suit, had a nice little blue suit and everything, and I had a red tie on. I'm walking in the room, and I even had my hair back like what I call the Obama the taper. So I'm walking in the room, and I'm meeting the students for the first time, and the little boy looks up at me. He goes, "Oh, my mama wants you to be the president." I said, "Oh, you think I'm Barack Obama? That's nice, but I'm not." But they don't get to see us enough. So when they do get to see us, they, think of the wonderful ways that they get to encounter and interact with us. So
breaking those stereotypes, yeah,
we got to break those stereotypes. So like, I have close frat brothers who are educators and teachers. I have cousins who are teachers, all men, and we put our heart out there every single day for those babies. I remember as a fourth grade teacher, I would walk my students down the street and around the block to make sure they made it home safe, because we were always worried about someone fighting in the neighborhood. As a principal, I used to go pick my children up and bring them to school if the parents said that the car wasn't working. And I did it because I know someone would have done that for me if I was a child, because I've been picked up when I didn't have transportation. But I think that my heart's in the right place. So I knew I wasn't going to get paid a lot. My uncle told me that from the beginning. He said, if you think you're about to make millions of dollars, try something else.
Yeah, that's so good. So what has been the response now? Because kids coming out of the pandemic, attempting to be re-socialized, seeing maybe some of the anxieties and depressions or separation anxiety parents and teachers and students may have had. How do parents kind of, along with the teachers, guide the child out of that space and back to business as usual?
Well, I hope they don't do business as usual, because if anything, what we learned is business as usual does not work for everyone. Mm-hmm. The one thing I was hoping schools would do is take full opportunity of what the pandemic provided, right? An opportunity to hit the reset button. So Thomas Jefferson started public schools forever ago, right? And in that time, like 200 years ago, we still do it the exact same way. We still put kids in a room starting in August or September with one adult, maybe. And then, hopefully it's 20 or fewer, but most of the time it's 30 something plus kids. And then the teacher has to try and get to learn 30 different personalities at one time. That's like being a dean of pledges. Like, who in the world got time for all of y'all and all y'all going through, and then move you along, right? Just hurry up, get to the next one so I can get out of here. So, and we thought, oh, that system works so well, let's keep doing it. The pandemic made us think, teachers had to turn on a dime and set up classrooms in their basements, pick up camera microphones, overhead projectors, and order and all pay out of their pocket, get little manipulatives, learn how to move their camera around so that the kids would see and pay attention to what they were doing. And then we said, oh, it's over, let's go back. When we missed a golden opportunity. What these kids are able to do now is manipulate and use technology in such a proactive way that it's almost scary. So if they're going to use it and want to be on it and have it at their fingertips, why aren't we using that system, right? And so then if you have to go back, how are we preparing our kids for that? Like you've been in a pandemic and people told you breathing around you is bad, but everybody got to breathe. So, you got some kids who are like, wait. So if you breathe on me, I could die. And I got to go back to space with somebody. Like the little boy who refused to take his mask off, picture went viral. I'm not taking his mask off for his mom's graduate. His mom told him don't take it off for his class picture. And you got some kids whose parents are telling them, like, don't take your mask off, always wear it, even if they vax or not. So the mental health, we've got to make sure that we're providing some opportunities for kids who are hearing some things. I don't know what channel their TV on is at home and what's being pumped in their head, but you've got to bring them into to their mental health space when they get to school. So one of the things that I talk about, and I used to do as a classroom teacher, is classroom meetings. Like, let's do a temperature check when we get started for the day. Let's come up with an icebreaker question, or you can just freestyle. Like, it might be, what was something you watched on TV last night, or say what's on your mind. Anything like that to get the kids talking in this space, because then, I didn't want to be here today, but my mama made me come. Okay, I know you not about that life today, buddy. I'm not going to bug you. I'm going to make sure all your materials are in front of you, and you do you when you're ready. Right? Instead of you gonna sit here and you gonna listen to me when I'm talking to you. You're not gonna tell me. You're not gonna
they have bad days too.
They do. Adults have bad days.
You don't know what they're going through at home.
Yeah.
And they just like, I just want to come here, do these vocabulary words, and go home. Like, if I do that, I've won.
And you better be glad if I don't cuss you out in the process. I wrote the words down, lady. Don't keep coming for me. So we've got to allow kids to have their mental health breaks too. Another thing we need to do more, like, so the TV show Magic School Bus was popular because every day the kids went on a field trip. Now, granted, the bus was magic and could make them transform, but the only place a child should learn should not just be in a classroom. Teachers should take kids on all kinds of adventures and field trips. And this might cost a little bit more, but when we think about corporate sponsorships are out there to provide philanthropy for children to experience field trips to their buildings, field trips to their plants, field trips to their breweries, field trips to their ballparks, because they want kids to learn. Like, adults do jobs at the baseball stadium.
And just see their community. A lot of kids have never been off their block before. They may have been to the bodega, the corner store, whatever, but they don't even know, like, my city has this. Oh, this is available. And you don't know how that can trigger a child's mind to want to be something in life, because just knowing that opportunity or being exposure.
Yes.
Thing is there.
Exposure is there. Exposure is there. And let me tell you how important exposure is. I wanted to win Wimbledon when I was a little child. Right? Because I played tennis, and I knew that the best tennis players won Wimbledon. So I went hard to be a good tennis player. I wasn't even better than my sister, who was really good, by the way. Wow. But I'm not that bad. But the exposure that my mother put me in tennis, so now I know what Wimbledon is. Yeah. How many children can say that they know that? I hope enough. I hope a lot. But if you're a little black boy on the south side of Chicago and you're not exposed to tennis, music, and all you see is the sports athlete, football, basketball pumped in front of you, that's what you're going to think is the only option out there. But if I get put on a bus and I go on a field trip and I see how the local businesses run, if I see how the court systems are run, if I take a trip to the museum and learn about times gone by, I get inspiration because I'm being exposed. I have exposure. Now questions are circling around in my mind when you take me to the airport and I see the planes take off. How does that big metal bird stay in the air? I'm so glad you asked. Now we're talking physics and we're talking science. And so if they get to, and if a child has never been to the airport, like to fly on a plane, a school should automatically arrange a field trip and take them to the airport, because that's the first place that they'll learn that they can go when they want to go somewhere and do something different.
Control is a very important job, and there's
the person who even puts up those little, who changes the board and tell you when the flights are coming. That's a tedious job, but it takes a skill set. So not only can you get on here and come to this airport, get on a plane and go somewhere, but you can also work with all these different options.
Not just clean the plane. There's other things to do.
Yeah, you can pilot a plane. You can be the air traffic controller. You can be the airport administrator. There are so many jobs. Like, I think another way that we can break up this monotony in education is just be more visible in spaces around the city that you live in. Go on field trips. Take kids on nature walks during the day. Take your whole science lesson about life science to the Federal Reserve Park, to a neighborhood park, so that they can see in real time. Like, kids looking at a book is old. They don't do it anymore.
Dr. Sheldon, shouldn't a parent also do these on the weekend versus just giving your child a tablet and then you're trying to make a TikTok video or make your child go viral? Why not send your child to
make them go viral learning? Take them to the aquarium,
arts museum, science fairs, introduce your child to STEM. Maybe look at this documentary about this fact in Black history, or so many other things. Take them to the symphony and choose to listen to classical music.
Yes.
We talk about Bill Cosby or whatever, but outside of that, but as a kid, I was introduced to jazz through the Cosby Show.
Don't get me started on that. That's my show.
And I know it's so cliche, but I went to college because of a different world.
Yeah.
I joined a sorority because of a different world.
Yeah.
So joined the Navy, watching because Martin was in the Navy.
Yeah.
And so it's just like all of these things that we see and we place in front of our kids, exposing them to know, hey, this is possible. This is an option for you. I think it's very important. And then for you, being an educator and also being a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. So how does that impact kids when they see like what a fraternity, like what is that? Like, and then explaining that to them.
Yeah, well, okay. So my first day of teaching was January 5th, same day as Founders Day. So it always has a double meaning for me. So I came into the classroom on my first day of teaching wearing my letters. So my babies knew right away, what's that on your chest? That's K-A Sci-Fi Nu Pi. I even have 2 students who were from my very first class to actually cross my chapter as they got older. So my former 5th graders are now my frat brothers. Wow. So I think it's a great thing because my as a Kappa in Montgomery, I was able to have like all my frat brothers would come to my classroom, hang out with my students, read to them. So they got to see more Black men. There was actually a 4th grade teacher who was a Sigma. And so same thing, his frat brothers would come and read to his students while I had my 5th grade students. And so
my source, she taught at that time Reeves Rogers Elementary. And so when we had to do a community service project, we just go to her classroom and read to her students.
Yeah, and that's a great way to show them, what fraternity is about, because what we're doing is we're just helping out. We're looking out for someone who's in need. So we're there to socialize and to serve, right? We're there to make sure that people are having a good time and that people are well, and that they're well taken care of. And so my students loved it right away. Even when I became a school administrator, I always kept a decorative Kappa paddle or frame on my wall, and so the kids would ask questions about it. Even they would joke, say, "Man, you throwing up a gang sign?" I was like, "This is not a gang sign. This is a yo." But their culture was told them that symbol looked like a gang sign. So I did have to talk them down from that. Like when I was taking a picture, they was like, "What you throwing that up for, Dr. Meg?" I was like, "No. It's not,
yeah. And I think it's also important too, because not just with your organization in mind, but all of the D9 members, as far as what we've contributed to globally, as far as world history, to even take members from each organization, not just in Black History Month, but every day, to say, the first whatever, was a member of blah, 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 organization. Did you know Sora Hattie McDaniel was the first Black woman to win an Academy Award, and she was a member of City McGinn Monroe? Or did you know Nelson Mandela was a member of Phi Beta Sigma? Like these things, putting this information out there so they can see that this
Black greatness.
Yes, that Black excellence, and then how that can open doors with networking and such, and then you also have the brotherhood and sisterhood, but just to see that as important too.
Oh yeah, which brings me to my other point, like representation, right? So us being men of color, members of Kappa Alpha Psi, our founders who are mayors of cities, who have been champions of civil rights, who have been educators and leading communities locally. That representation has to come out. Like children need to see, especially men of color.
Yeah.
Boys of color need to see men of color who are thriving and surviving. And so that's why all of my children's literature features people of color, right? I want little kids to see themselves in the pages. And so this is the last children's book that I've written. I actually have another one in the making right now, but this one is Mr. Wish. And so it's about a school custodian who is secretly a genie, and he grants 3 children magical wishes when they answer his riddles. And so again, it's about representation. So children see the school custodian. Sometimes he happens to be a person of color, right? And if he is a man of color, he still deserves the same respect and dignity, because what is he doing? He's preparing your school, making it clean, making it safe for you. So this story, I like to say, teaches children to appreciate everybody who works at your school, be it the principal of the school, be it the secretary in the office, the classroom teacher, the bus driver. If they're making sure that you're here, start off by giving them that courtesy. And then in this story, it's written all in rhyme. So it's a fun way for the kids to pay attention to it. And that, I pull that out in my stories because I want that representation up front. I don't want kids to wonder, can I do that? Am I the one who's able to do it? Yes, when you see it, you can believe it, right? It starts with the vision. So if I put it in my mind, right, and if that's coming through inspiration, that's all I can ask for. I want kids to be able to see themselves doing whatever they want to, whatever magic they hold in their eyes. But I don't want them to say, oh no, I can't do that because I never did. Or I don't know anyone who ever did it before. So that's why it's important for me to have that representation out in front. Give them that possibility.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it's so impactful when we look at notable members that are Greek, and to see representation, like Colin Kaepernick. He's a Kappa. You look at Martin Sapp, Cedric the Entertainer. It's just so many people that we see out here. Martin Luther King, he was an Alpha. Coretta Scott was an AKA. Langston Hughes was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Zora Neale Hurston, she was a Zeta. So it's just like the list goes on and on as far as how these organizations have touched the world. But these people are also very impactful. You're very impactful. One day I hope to be impactful in the world of media, for representation for little brown Black girls out there that have something to say. And my lane is mental health and education. I love those things. So it's just like, we have to open those doors and walk in our calling, our purpose, and do so unapologetically. Last fall, I host an annual virtual conference. It's called Heart and Soul. And one of my guests, Rakanius, and we were just talking about Black men and showing up in representation. And he said something that it just has stuck with me so much, Dr. Sheldon. He said, I had to learn to bring all of myself into the room and just let other people adjust. And I think as us being people of color, being Black and brown, we need to learn more how to bring all of us into a space and let everyone adjust, whether it's in education, digital media, professionally in corporate America, wherever it is, bring all of you into the room. Right. Bring all of you into the room.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree, because for so long, especially African American a country, we had to tiptoe into spaces, right? Yeah. We had to either be welcomed in or directed through a certain door. So when we get in there, we want to make others feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And he is absolutely right. I remember the day I stopped saying white people and started saying white people.
Right. Or we do like this.
Yeah. So I did it for so long because I was conditioned to make sure that I didn't offend. But, I'm not being offensive. I'm talking about a predicament that a person who is white is in that I experienced or saw. And that's my guard dog. With that, yeah, be bold. Walk into your space. Nate ain't chasing a squirrel, but he out there making all kinds of noise.
Yeah.
But be bold in your space. Walk into it confidently, and then they can accept you or not. You know, that's their choice, but it won't stop your light from shining.
Yeah.
Because if they want to turn their shade or turn on their blinders, they perfectly have the right to do it.
Yeah.
But you walk in there unapologetically, be bold, be brave, and own that space, you know. So that's what I plan on doing when I started teaching as a professor, because I know the experiences that I've had and how it'll bless and benefit a student who wants to be a teacher. And I'm going to walk in there boldly and present that information to them.
I love it. And before we wrap up, you've also written some amazing children's books. So one thing, Dr. Sheldon, as far as what inspires you to write the children's books, particularly for little Black boys and Black girls, and then what are each of those books about?
Right. So the first book I wrote, and I'm kicking myself because I left it on my stand. It's okay. Is Everybody Came to Daddy Chuck's Funeral. It's a tribute to my grandfather. I was raised by a wonderful man who just loved his family so much. And so in the story, these three cousins, Kiki, Ray Ray, and Peanut, experienced, you know, like everybody got a Kiki, everybody got a Ray Ray, and everybody got a Peanut in their family. And so they're just reliving the funny moments that happened at their grandfather's funeral so that they can connect with him. The way that they loved on him was through his humor. And so this comes out in the story where they're laughing at the funny things that they noticed at the funeral. So it helps children to understand like grieving process, like, you know, people will leave us, people will pass away. How do we deal with that grief? How do we remember them and not be sad that they're gone and we're still here? And then the second book I did was called The ABCs of Anti-Racism. And it's an alphabet book that is a conversation starter. And with each letter of the alphabet is associated with a student-friendly definition of a word that they should know to be an anti-racist. For example, the first word is A is for acceptance, right? And we teach children that no matter where you come from or who you are, you're here now. And that's enough, and you're accepted. I shouldn't have to walk into a space with a qualifier like I'm Black, but I live in a nice neighborhood, or I'm white and my mom and dad aren't together. Like, it shouldn't say where a kid has to adjust who they are for someone to accept them. And so we teach children about that and other terms like bravery. And we teach them about, like even microaggressions are in there, because I want you as a little 4-year-old to know when someone is talking down to you. Like if
or
you
hair touching, that is my pet peeve.
Or hair touching. Don't get me started on touching my hair. I don't know if you can see it, but I got curls.
So much. Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole history lesson within itself.
Yeah. So, but yes, kids should know like that's not okay for someone to just walk up and say, "Oh, let me touch your hair." No. So that's the children's book, ABCs of Anti-Racism, and then. The last book I told you was Mr. Wish, and it's a fairy. It's the first American fairy tale with children of color, and so it's about like I said, a school custodian who is secretly a genie, and he grants children magical wishes so that when they come to school, they actually have a good time. And so it's just like I said, it's a way to show children how to appreciate everybody who works in your building, no matter what position they are. They're there because they love the work that they do, and they want to make it a safe place for children. I'm working on a lot of creative projects, so keep tuned. I have another book coming out and a TV show that I'm working on.
I want you to come back and talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, both of these ideas, and I'd like to come back and if I'm not invite myself, but when the other two projects, the Ed Tech Company, the novel, and I'd love to come back and talk about it, because all of my work centers people of color, because I want us exposed to ourselves in the most positive way. I love the TV programs that are out there right now featuring African American people, and I especially love the ones that have a positive message, because a lot of people relate to television shows. Like we talk about it around the water cooler, we say our favorite parts. And if those stories are uplifting, like if you got me and my siblings talking about a different world, like we got a whole family thread that we just call Hillman grads. And
I have the T-shirt, I have the sweatshirt, I got the Dwayne glasses.
Like, and listen, you that's how you get into the school. For we all love the show, but the way you get into the group chat is you gotta get a T-shirt. If you don't get a T-shirt, you're not a Hillman grad.
I have sweatshirt, glasses, like
yeah. But that was inspiring television, right?
I have a Whitley's phone from her dorm room.
See, yeah, okay, we speaking the same language because that was inspiring television, and so that perception became our reality. So my content is that I create inspiring realities based off fiction and drama that make you say, "Yes, I can. Yes, we can. We should keep going. Let's support each other." So that's the basis of my work.
And I have someone, I've known him literally since the day he was born. I've known his parents since I was like 7 years old. He's in ed tech and he has a YouTube channel, and I would love to connect you two together.
Oh, I would love to. Yes, please. Thank you.
No problem. He's a recent graduate from TSU, Tennessee State. So, yeah, I would definitely. Well, once we're done here, we'll chat and I'll connect you with him. Bless you.
Thank you.
And he's doing some amazing things. To me, he's like the Black Mr. Rogers, and that's his lane. And I think you guys could do some really cool things.
Well, that's cool because I consider myself the very blackest Dr. Seuss.
I love it. I love it. So before we wrap things up, Dr. Sheldon, did you have any like jewels or nuggets or takeaways you wanted to leave with the viewers and listeners? And then also, where can people find you on social media?
Yes. Okay. That's the easier one. I'll start with that. So I can be found on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So my tag that's under there, it says www.drsheldoncmcafee.com. So just use at Dr. Sheldon C. McAfee on all social media.
TikTok are so good.
Thank you. My it's one of the concepts I want to use for my television show is, kind of think of if Mr. Rogers met in Living Color. But and not where is Eddie Murphy as Mr. Rogers, but like really reading the kids and then having like funny skits that entertain teachers, parents, and kids, because that's I love doing that as a classroom teacher. I used to say I like being a teacher because I had an audience and they couldn't go anywhere. But so that's where you can find me on all platforms at drsheldoncmcafee.com, TikTok, Instagram. On Twitter, it's McAfee_doctor. So, just switch the names around, but you can search the name and I'm sure I'll pop up.
Okay. Good.
If I had any nuggets to share, I would say read to a child every day. Kids need the exposure to literature and literacy because they are going to be our thought provokers, thought makers, policy makers in the future. And we've got to reinforce their thinking with solid material that really reflects how human beings should interact with each other. And it can't be where they're always bang, 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 shooting up on a video game.
Right.
They've got to receive information that talks about how we feel, think, and connect to one another. So my advice, if I could give it to anyone, is to read to a child today.
I absolutely love it. First of all, I'm super excited that you came here to join me as a first time on the Speaker Podcast. The audience is loving you. I think you're cool. I definitely want to have you back, especially to dig more into like ed tech or educational technology for those that don't know what that is, and just break down some other things, just because I think this is a conversation that's not had as much as it should. I think it's very important. I also think that is very necessary, even though the school year is ending, which is probably another conversation, filling that gap from the end of the year to the fall, how kids lose so much and then having to catch up, and that cycle.
That summer slump. You want to hear me make teachers mad? My plan would be school should be year round, but with breaks in between, because that summer slump is not necessary, right? That just show you how old it is. They stopped letting kids go to school in the summer because they were supposed to be preparing them to pull in the harvest. Yep. So that's the only reason kids don't go to school.
We don't do that anymore.
And we don't do that. Or to plant and be prepared for the harvest, but we don't do that anymore. Right? Kids are not leaving schoolhouse going to the farms, right? So why can't we do something different? That's just, but hopefully my platform, which I do believe is will revolutionize how we teach and learn in this country, will start us on that path, because I really think that learning in a school is the oldest possible thing we could ever do.
Yes, that's so important. And when we do bring you back, Dr. Sheldon, we do want to talk about those things. There's so many things I want to impact and even have you on as a regular for educational segments, particularly for Black and brown children going forward, just because I think you're so knowledgeable and you bring so much value to the conversation and your experience. So I would like to do that and extend that to you, just to open up that lane, because I think it's super important for our parents and students and educators to see and hear and open up that dialogue so we can get some things going. So
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate this. And yes, follow me. All my books are available at that website, www.drsheldoncmcafee.com. And I look forward to being around for a long time. Like I say, I consider myself the new Dr. Seuss. I want to make sure I put more books in children's hands and more stories for them to connect to. So be on the lookout. I'll see you guys real soon.
awesome. And everybody, I really hope you got something from this episode. Thank you for tuning in. This is your girl, Camille, as the host of the Speaker Podcast, the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Go right now to my website, chemistryroomfragrances.com. First time subscribers, if you use the coupon code listed on the screen, you can save 15% at the checkout. And our Father's Day sale is going on right now until June the 10th. Use coupon code DAD20. That way you can save 20% off at the checkout, because I do believe good Black men are still out there. All of them are not bad. We are here to celebrate all of our good brothers, our fathers, our educators, God brothers, whoever you know that's a good brother in your life. We want to celebrate them, not just on Father's Day, but 365. Be sure to hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Speaker Podcast. And next time, you don't know who's going to be here, but you got to subscribe. That way you'll know. So have a great day. Bye-bye.